Today I'm going to introduce you to one of my personal favorites among all-in-one liquid coolers, and will also tell you why I think of this particular cooler the way I do. The model you're seeing right now goes by the name of DeepCool Castle 360EX. This is a 360mm AIO liquid cooler, part of DeepCool's premium brand GamerStorm. Now, if you still remember, I've used the smaller 240mm version for my AMD Ryzen 3000 testing, and it did a great job. But DeepCool certainly has an ace up its sleeves and brings some pretty cool innovation to the all-in-one liquid cooler market. This being the so-called anti-leak tech, which basically lowers the risk of your cooler leaking by a lot. Because yes, even though it doesn't happen that often that a cooling unit leaks, it does happen from time to time in some cases. Now, how exactly this works, I'll try to explain in a moment. Of course, it's not just the anti-leak tech that has been focused on. Performance, aesthetics, and noise levels play a big role too. Obviously, that wouldn't necessarily make this AIO one of the cheaper options out there. No, right now this Castle 360EX comes in at about $140 US, but there certainly are more expensive units out there by the competition, so there's that. $140 for more safety and a peace of mind, in my opinion, doesn't seem like a bad deal to make. But how good is this Castle 360EX really that I personally think so highly of it? In terms of what's included, as always with DeepCool, we get plenty of stuff. Fans, a splitter cable for those, all the mounting hardware we need, a nice case badge with the manufacturer's logo on it, an alternate pump cap for the mirror finish, obviously Rgb cables, and kindly included an Rgb controller for those of you that don't actually have a 3-pin 5V header on your motherboard. And as you'll see a bit later into the video, this controller is capable of providing a number of fancy colors and effects. Just a bit of a bummer that aside from the thermal paste already applied onto the base of the pump, no additional tube whatsoever has been included. This liquid cooler, by the way, can also be picked up in white. Let me know if you'd ever want me to take a look at a white version in the future, and I'll see what I can do. Anyway, the aesthetics have been done really well by DeepCool, at least when it comes down to my taste. Some may would have wished seeing illuminated fans, but if you're asking me, it's fine the way it is. After all, the design of the pump already does attract a lot of attention. No matter if the lighting on the pump, or rather water block, is turned on or off, I absolutely love the look. It's connected via a 3-pin 5V connector, meaning we see full compatibility with ASUS AuraSync, Gigabyte RGB Fusion, MSI Mystic Light Sync, as well as ASRock Polychrome Sync. Those of you that don't actually have the option to control the lighting via the motherboard haven't been forgotten. Included is this neat small Rgb controller. With that one you can set a few fancy colors as well as color combinations. I'd also like to praise the good LED quality here. Very smooth transitions and the colors are gorgeous. In real life we even get to see a really nice white tone. Now, if you aren't really into branding that much, you can easily replace that GamerStorm logo in the center of the water block with the included neutral cap. The orientation of those caps can be changed too, just in case it happens to be upside down, depending on which type of configuration you go for. The aluminum radiator makes a pretty good impression, and in fact, we are once again talking of the standard thickness of 27mm. Neither the fittings on the radiator nor on the pump happen to be out of metal. Just like with many other coolers out there, it's plastic, even though these fittings do make a more solid impression than what I usually get to see. Now, what about the whole anti-leak tech? How does it work? As far as I know, DeepCool has been researching and developing this technology for about 3 years. Inside the radiator, there's this so-called pressure relief bag, one side of which is being dipped in the coolant and the other side being exposed to air. Now, when the internal pressure exceeds the air pressure, the bag will be squeezed and thereby increases the unit's internal volume. As a result, the increased pressure is released and the risk of leakage is avoided. because usually, while liquid coolers are in operation, the coolant's temperature increases, meaning the volume will expand. Sometimes gas can be generated within the system, which will further increase the system's pressure. If the pressure exceeds critical levels, the cooler can leak. Now, by telling you that, I don't want to scare you away from AIO coolers. This doesn't mean your AIO could leak anytime soon. Leakage doesn't happen often, but there's always some risk involved, and you should be aware of that. So I find it to be a great move by the manufacturer DeepCool to actually fight this issue. The pump is driven by a 3-phase motor, promising a long lifespan as well as low noise levels. And that I pretty much can confirm. This sure happens to be a relatively quiet pump, but if set to run at its full 2550 RPM, it definitely gets very audible. As expected, we are talking of a copper base. The tube length is at 465 mm, which is impressive, the material being rubber here, and all is nicely sleeved. Something that we unfortunately do not get to see very often with AIO liquid coolers is support for those gigantic AMD Threadripper CPUs. Usually it's only the mainstream Intel and AMD processors that get full support, so it makes me quite happy to find out this cooler does actually support the STRX4 and TR4 sockets. The installation, as with so many CPU coolers nowadays, is extremely easy and fast. There's hardly anything you can do wrong, and I guess we are now ready to take a look at the test results. First, ones with my old overclocked Intel i7-7700K, and following that, ones with the newer AMD Ryzen 7 3800X. Well, in terms of temperatures, today's Castle 360EX doesn't really stand out from the rest. Don't get me wrong, it delivers very good cooling performance at pretty good noise levels. Of course, as with pretty much any cooler out there, it's up to us to find and set the perfect balance between performance and noise levels. Because while the fans at lower fan speeds pretty much end up being inaudible, then somewhat audible when going for medium speeds, so to speak, the fans at their rated max speed of 1800 RPM can be considered to be more on the louder side. With the help of a few little tweaks, however, we can definitely call this liquid cooler quiet nonetheless. This applies to both the fans as well as the pump. And there we are again. The pump with its mirror finish looks phenomenal. All in all, the Castle 360EX does manage to greatly impress me. There are a few reasons for that. Overall good cooling performance at decent noise levels, gorgeous aesthetics, good build quality, a decent usable Rgb controller, support for Threadripper sockets, and on top of all that, the anti-leak tech, which in theory at least sounds very convincing. And so I find the pricing of about $140 for the DeepCool Castle 360EX a pretty good deal nonetheless, even though it certainly isn't for everyone. With that being said, thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next one.